The next step here, we're going to remove the clips that hold the wires in place over the electronic cover. So you just need a little screwdriver. You'll see two little openings. You pop them up on both sides. Do not puncture the wires. You'll do that here too. And they just pop out. Those are now garbage. And then you'll notice these will come free except for two. And you will want to open this connector here to get the wires out of the holder. This little white connector. And we're going to unplug this one. And we're going to label this pump motor. And then we're going to come over here. And you'll notice all these wires travel back to the Epson mainboard. These are all labeled. You'll see CN marks on it, on the cable itself, and they also have labeling on the board so you know where to plug these back in when you put it back together. All the main plugs are color coded, so you can't mess this up. Just pay close attention, and if you're uncomfortable, label them. Okay, as you see, we've disconnected all the wires from the Epson mainboard, and like I said, these are pre-labeled and they're all CN numbers. And the corresponding number is actually on the board, so you'll be able to look at that to plug them back in. The hard wires, you can see I've labeled all the numbers. So as you unplug them, just label them with the corresponding CN number and look at it closely. If you have to get a little magnifying glass, it helps because there's a, for example, CN117, and you might duplicate the number as a CN17. You don't want to confuse those up. Generally, these are color-coded, and each individual plugs only go in one way, but it's always good to label everything to be able to put it back into place. Next step is we're going to remove this sensor here. It's no longer needed. It just pops out, and then you have some wires here that you need to pull out of the holder. And then you're going to unclip these. A little screwdriver would probably help that. And you're just going to pull it out one at a time, snap it back in place because we don't want to, we're eventually going to take those plugs out, but we don't want to confuse these wires. So you're just going to take a little screwdriver and push this little indent down. It comes loose, pop it out, snap it back in place. All the way along here, push the indent down, pull the wire out. That should be the last one. Then you're going to want to fish this out. Probably one that you've labeled, but we're not going to use this. Let's put it aside. Next step will be we want to remove all the mainboard components. So there's a process to get to that point. You'll see a little zip tie here, and it's holding this Wi-Fi board on. So we just want to cut this little zip tie here. Be careful not to cut the actual wire itself. And you'll see that that comes up as you cut. So now that's free. And then we're actually going to want to remove the Wi-Fi board. And we have 3 screws for that. It's going to be one right here on the edge of the main board, one right down in here on each side, and this is the Wi-Fi component. It just pulls out, and we're going to set that aside. We are going to reuse this. This does have to be plugged in, so you do not want to damage that. So the next step here is we're going to remove the screws so that we can pull the main board and power supply electronics out. And there's several screws. You're going to start here. There's one screw here, one screw here, screw here, screw here, screw here, screw here, screw here, a screw over on this side, And while you're at it, you will want to remove all these tapes, any tape that's on it that will keep it from coming out. So we'll do that now. Okay, now that we have all the screws removed, one screw I forgot to point out in the last is right here. It goes through the actual capping station holder, and I missed that one in pointing it out. But once they're all removed, this is just going to slide out like this. And here you see we have the Epson mainboard and the Epson power supply. Just go ahead and unplug the power supply from here. And next we're going to show you how the actual T-Dozer board mounts in here. You're going to want to remove these two screws, these two right here, and these two screws right here. And then we're going to mount the the T-Dozer board in place. Okay, so we've taken our screws out for the T-Dozer board, and I've installed the T-Dozer board, simply putting the screws right back into the location that they came out. The T-Dozer board is designed to fit within this enclosure. So the power supply we unplugged, we're simply going to plug it back in to the T-Dozer board. Now this will power the T-Dozer board to control all the components. This is a wire you get with the kit, along with several, but we're going to do this as we go with the process. This is power back from the T-Dozer board, back into the Epson main board, which plugs right back into the original location of this wire. So you can see basically we've created a jumper. We've got power now coming from the Epson power supply to the T-Dozer board, from the T-Dozer board back to the Epson main board. So now that we've finished that process, you'll want to put this board over to the side in a safe place. You don't want to get any static electricity or anything when you're working on other portions of the printer. This part of the step is complete, and we'll move on to other portions of cutting the printer.